Welcome to Purpose of Heart, the podcast, where real stories meet God's promises. I'm Priscilla Allman, and every week we dive into powerful conversations about purpose in the pressure through caregiving, illness, grief, addiction, and more. If you've ever asked, God, where are you in this? You're in the right place. Be sure to follow the show, and let's find purpose together. Welcome back to Purpose of Heart, the podcast. I'm your host, Priscilla Allman, and today we're going to talk about why your story still matters, even if it's not neat yet. Our theme verse of today is Philippians 1:6, being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Today's conversation is for the one who feels like their story isn't quite finished yet. Or maybe it's a little messy right now. You know, we all love a good before and after moment. Those stories where everything wraps up with a nice, neat little bow. And especially now with our digital age where, you can have stitches and different things like that. It just seems like instantly you see the before and then the after. But what about for real life when things take longer than expected? What about those in-between seasons? The chapters that feel unfinished, where you're still kind of figuring it out, still healing, still hoping? Maybe you've said, I'll share my story when it makes sense. Or no one wants to hear this part. Because if we're honest, sometimes we don't want to hear this part ourselves. But friend, your story matters even here, even when it's not neat yet. We often think value comes from completion, that our story only matters once our testimony is tight. But God doesn't wait for perfection to use us. If we go back to that verse in Philippians, it says, he who has begun a good work will complete it. That means God is still writing. You are a work in progress, not a lost cause, failure, but a story in motion. Think about Joseph. Before the palace, there was the pit. Before victory, there was a whole lot of betrayal. If he had stopped believing in the middle, he would have missed the miracle on the other side. Maybe you're in a pit season right now, and it's uncertain and uncomfortable, and you don't understand why it has to be this way. But God is still there. He's present just as much in the middle as he is at the ending. Let's be honest. There's parts of our story we'd rather skip. The heartbreak, the waiting, the moments we don't want to post about. But those are often the very places where God chooses to reveal his grace. Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good, to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. All things, not just the easy parts, not just the healed parts, all things. The loss that shaped you, the detour that really confused you, the delay that taught you to depend on him, They're all ingredients to this beautiful story that God is writing. A story that's shaping you for empathy and impact. Sometimes we think our story only matters if it inspires someone else. But your story already has value because it's yours and because God's fingerprints are all over it. Even if you're still in process, God can use you right now. The messy middle might just be what someone else needs to hear. We live in a world that loves these polished stories. The highlight reels, the glow ups, the transformational pictures. But real faith lives in the unseen chapters, the ones where you're still learning to trust, where you're being molded. When I think of David, I'm reminded that he was anointed long before he was appointed. He had a promise on his life, but his path was full of caves, conflict, and waiting. Yet through all of that, he worshiped. He wrote Psalms. His words were born from broken places, and they now strengthen generations. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to those who have a broken heart and saves such as have a contrite heart." That means your brokenness doesn't disqualify you. If you allow him in, it draws you closer to God. Maybe you're listening right now and thinking, but my story is too complicated. And of course, we want to be diligent not to, feed other people our dysfunctions. But we also need to release the pressure to have a perfect story. Let's let it be what it is: honest, evolving, and still unfolding. So how can we practically do some of these things? How do we honor our stories while they're still being written? One, we can tell the truth, even to ourselves. Not to minimize what we've been through, but naming our pain helps to give space for healing. Because we can't heal what we keep pretending doesn't hurt. And we can also reflect before we rush. Right? Sometimes we want to just move past the hard stuff quickly. But reflection is how wisdom is formed. So we can journal, pray, or talk to someone safe about what God is teaching us. Share in pieces. You don't have to share the whole story to be impactful. We could share what we've learned so far, how we've seen God working in our lives. Someone needs to know that God is faithful in the process, not just in the victory. Keep showing up for our own healing. You can't control every chapter, but you can choose to keep turning the pages. Healing requires some amount of effort and work, but every step counts. Isaiah 43:18-19 says, "Do not remember the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I will do a new thing." Friend, God is not finished with your story. He's just getting started. If you've been wondering if your story still matters, this is your reminder. Yes, it does. Not because it's perfect, but because it's purposeful. The parts that don't make sense yet? We can trust the God who sees all is weaving it into something beautiful. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, "He has made everything beautiful in its time." So hold on to that. You're not behind. You're becoming. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with someone who might need this reminder too. Your story still matters right here, right now. Until next time, keep trusting, keep believing, keep living with purpose of heart, and keep trusting the author who's not finished writing your story. See you soon. Thanks for listening to Purpose of Heart, the podcast at www.purposeofheartpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. There's so much more God is doing, and I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you in advance for the reviews and shares. They help this message reach more hearts. I can't wait to walk with you again in next week's episode. See you there.